welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following episode. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows.
Greetings, sir. How are you today?
Hi. I'm doing well. It's a lonely experience for me right now. Anna has left me. No, she has not divorced me. She's up in New York attending to some things, cleaning up some stuff back home, and she took a little Obi with her, so it's just me.
Oh man!
But fortunately, I have you now, and we have the opportunity to fill this void in my life with talking about some movies, talking about some TV shows, and you know it's spooky season, so I've cracked open a pumpkin beer.
Nice.
So life's not so bad after all, actually.
It's comforting to know that when everyone else leaves, there's always movies in the podcast.
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to say we have each other, but yes,
we have each other
too. Yeah, via the podcast, right?
That's it.
Yeah. No, I think we got a good one on tap. We're back, back. Obviously, we did a very long special episode, talking about my wedding, talking about my honeymoon, and we obviously, I guess, did spend a fair amount of time catching up on what we've been up to for the month or so leading up to that. But this is a regular episode. We're back on track. We're doing the normal thing this time. We're gonna have a fun fact. Stay tuned. We're gonna have some news. Stay tuned, and then we're gonna talk about The Woman King, recent theatrical release. It's actually been out, I think, for a few weeks now as of recording, so we're playing catch up a little bit, but an exciting one to talk about. I actually, funnily enough, looked up the news that we did on our last regular episode when we covered Nope, and we talked about the trailer and that episode.
Excellent.
So it's been a quick turnaround from getting excited for it and then having the opportunity to see it and now to talk about it. So that's what we're here to talk about, and then we'll see what else we've been up to. So that's what we've got on tap for this episode.
And I think seeing that everybody's married, all the honeymoons are over, we may, and you know, we've, I don't want to go too far out on this limb, but we might be seeing a return to normalcy. We might be able to start going to the movie theaters more often. Might be able to start recording smaller, bite-sized episodes on a more weekly basis.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the problem is when we spend 2-3 weeks between recording sessions, it's like we gotta pack it all in, and so it ends up being 2, 3, 4 hour extravaganzas. And is that fun for anyone? I mean, it's fun for us when we drink and have a jolly time, but everyone leaves, and then the next morning they're like, oh man, and then the next day I look at it and think, oh man, that's so much fucking so much content to edit. And then, and then the listeners probably get it on the feed and they're like, Jesus Christ, 3 fucking hours, so.
The movie was only an hour and a half. I don't understand.
Yeah. I think I said it to James when we did our Ink to Film episode on The Hobbit. As long as the podcast episode is shorter than the actual thing that it's covering, you've succeeded. And we quite often fail at that. And in fact, say there's a decent chance we fail at it again today because we are playing a lot of catch up and talking about a lot of stuff, but we'll make that our goal yet again. How's that?
That's it.
Keep it around 2 hours and 15 minutes. Anyone that has seen the actual runtime, we obviously don't know what it is because we're still doing the damn thing, but people looking at it are thinking, well, they either succeeded or, well, they failed by quite a lot. So we'll see what happens. That's our goal. Do you have any fun facts about The Woman King before we get into some news?
I do. This movie, and it seems like this is the case with, if this might sound ignorant, but it seems like anytime there is just a culture, like a different culture being represented on film that isn't, in the forefront all the time.
Sure.
It seems like there's always controversy, one way or the other.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything enough. They didn't talk about this one thing. They glossed over one thing or another. Anyways, with this movie being about African women, an army of women in Africa during the slave trade, naturally, I think, it would be ridiculous for it not to have controversy. Of course, it's going to have controversy. Everything's got to have controversy. And so, I'll just kind of gloss over the fun fact. Fun fact is that this movie is about a real historical group of people historical group of women. They were the elite military for, for a place that is modern day Benin, I believe it is.
Okay.
And I believe the place during that time was, I want to say, Dahomey? Is that right?
Dahomey, Kingdom of Dahomey.
Dahomey, not Mahomes. Mahomes, the football player. Anyways, yes, the Kingdom of Dahomey. And the elite female warriors, they're called the Agojie. Agojie,
right? Yeah.
And they were, I mean, the female warriors from Black Panther, the
Dora Milaje.
Yes, they were obviously very much. I feel like they were inspired by these.
It certainly would feel that way. Yeah.
But it was a radical. It was a radically different. It was the only kingdom in Africa, and it's actually, I think, one of the only elite female militaries in history. Especially on this scale. When
pretty unheard of, I think.
When the king,
think about any history that we know,
Yeah, absolutely. When the king that we see represented in this movie, when he actually took when he became king in 1818, the Agojie were Agojie. The Agojie were, I think I read somewhere that there were only 600 of them. And he was so I guess he was just so blown away at them, just in awe, that he increased their numbers to over 6,000. So that was really interesting. There's a lot of really interesting things about this culture, or not this culture, but these about this particular kingdom, specifically the female warriors. The other thing is that they became one of the most powerful kingdoms in Africa because of the slave trade. 200 years prior to what we see on film. The slave trade started in the 1600s or something like that, and it went on for a couple hundred years. And this movie actually takes place at a time when the English outlawed slave trade. And so what it does is it kind of puts the pressure back on the African people on whether or not they're going to continue, being that the UK is not participating in it anymore, and everything else. So it's kind of it's an interesting time that the movie takes place in. But the controversy is that the movie glossed over some of the slave trade stuff, and so that's the fact.
Yeah,
about this movie.
and we'll get into it obviously more as we talk about the movie itself. But it's also probably worth noting this movie is a work of fiction. It is not
that's right.
Historical. It's not a documentary, obviously, but it's really not even intended to be. I think, portraying true historical characters, with I think the major exception the king himself actually is a true king, that ruled
the kingdom
during that time. But the main character is fictional. I think the supporting cast are all fictional, and obviously it's heavily inspired and using actual history as its basis for telling its story. But I don't think it's claimed to be a true representation of how things obviously went down. So I think that the controversy is, I know there was a lot of controversy even when we talked about the trailer, because the trailer itself basically completely glossed over it. But I think the film addresses it in a more head-on way than I think that people were expecting based on the YouTube comments and stuff like that. So I think a lot of the controversy was pre-release, and I'm curious to see what the response has been, post-release after having full exposure to the film, because I feel like
it has its own boycott hashtag.
Well, yeah, but again, are the people boycotting it because they saw it and were outraged by what they saw, or are they boycotting because of what it is and they don't want, they didn't actually watch the film itself? So I think that's what I would be curious to know is it that it's addressing it at all? Is that it's not going far enough with it? Is it, what's the real issue that I think is driving a lot of the narrative? And is it that it's a film about black women with a predominantly black cast? Is that the issue? Again, I read how much is good faith versus bad faith is what I wonder, I guess.
I got a lot of the same vibes from what little bit I was reading. You remember when the Lin-Manuel movie came out? Into the Heights.
In the Heights, yeah.
In the Heights. And there was a lot of controversy about and I am ignorant in this, and I apologize, but there's a particular subset of Latin culture that wasn't represented enough.
Yeah, I think it was basically the demographics of Washington Heights as depicted, and that didn't really truly capture what that neighborhood looked like. I think was a lot of the frustrations was you had a lot of, I guess, lighter skinned Latin people, I guess, represented, and not really many dark skinned people. And the one character that was dark skinned wasn't even Latino himself. So it was I think that was kind of the source of frustration with that one. One of
the more vocal criticisms of this movie was that there wasn't any Western African people cast in the movie.
Okay.
So yeah. I mean, that was
sure.
Or there wasn't a lot of them, or there wasn't enough of them, or whatever. But it was almost. I felt like it was a similar thing.
Yeah. I could see that. We're obviously a step past white people just portraying things in blackface. So we're at least not doing that. And I think the thing is, obviously, I think that obviously, especially within the Heights, is true too, where I think the argument is, well, you're not doing enough. You're doing something, and that's good. I'm glad that you're doing something. It's better than what we had before, which was, racist,
blackface,
offensive, insulting. You know what I mean? But you're still not quite there yet. And I think if you want to levy that at this one, I think that you could probably. I think it's probably fair. I think if you're looking at it from that point of view. But I do think that we've certainly made some great strides overall, and I think that this film, and again, we'll talk about it more when we fully talk about it. Yeah, I mean, I think it does a pretty, from what I can tell, a pretty good job of trying to tell the story that it tells and doing it, in a relatively authentic way, while again still recognizing it's a work of fiction. It's historical fiction, I guess. So to speak.
As somebody who's ignorant to African culture, largely ignorant to it.
Sure, yeah. Neither of us are experts here. In fact, neither of us probably know a fucking thing about any of this before we walked into the movie, other than reading about it after, on Wikipedia after watching the trailer.
That's right.
That was our source of knowledge.
I think that this movie is best when it is rolling in African culture, or what I perceive to be African culture. So. Whether or not it's 100% accurate, I mean, it is. If everyone who watches it, if everyone who watches a thing, they're ignorant of it, and they perceive it as a celebration of a particular culture, isn't that a win too?
Right. Yeah.
Like you didn't get this thing. You didn't get this thing 100% accurate, to what it is. But I view it as these people celebrating their culture, or doing whatever, you know what I mean. And like I said, I think that's a big win. But that's it. That's the controversy of The Woman King.
Okay, all right. Well, we will dive into our fuller coverage of the film itself shortly, but we'll begin with some news. And before we actually get into some proper news, I do actually want to quickly talk about some deaths that have happened since we last did a regular episode. So I'm sure there are more than the two names that I have on hand, but Coolio died.
Coolio? Fucking Coolio? Gangster Paradise Coolio?
Ago. That's right, Gangsta's Paradise Coolio died at age 59.
Holy shit.
Quite young. Circumstances of his death aren't clear, but it basically sounds like his manager suspects that he had a heart attack. So it seems that that's obviously what happened. I think, Coolio, for the most part, obviously known for his music. And I think kind of just as a general personality, probably in our lifetimes, I think
totally.
I think he's kind of transcended just being a musician to being kind of a celebrity, and doing a lot of shit on TV. And obviously, and I think he had a fairly extensive filmography as well. I think especially late 90s, early 2000s. Lest we forget, he was cut out of the theatrical version of Daredevil, the classic. But his role was restored for the director's cut version, which he plays a falsely accused defendant, which his whole subplot is integral to taking the Kingpin down, and they cut it from the theatrical cut, and none of it made any fucking sense. Now, is the movie good anyway, having rewatched it within the past year or so. No, it's quite bad, in fact. But but he played a pivotal role in it, and so there's that. But it was announced, I think, because I guess he plays he does a voice for Futurama, and there's a Futurama revival happening, and he apparently was able to record all his voice lines for that before he passed away. So yeah, age 59 is far too young, and I think he's someone that has had a fair impact, I think, on pop culture. And certainly Gangsta's Paradise is a fucking banger. I don't think there's any question about that. So rest in peace to Coolio. And then today, Dame Angela Lansbury passed away at age 96. So she was a little more up there in terms of years, but still a big loss, actually. I mean, and so Angela Lansbury is someone who I've recognized and seen in things here and there, but it took her death basically for me to look at her filmography and like what she's done in Hollywood, and it's fucking ridiculous. She started in Hollywood in the 1940s. Her first roles were in the 1940s, and she basically worked up through pretty recently, still making appearances and having, pretty regular roles in a lot of things. I think on TV, Murder, She Wrote was a big one that she was on for 12 seasons. I think that's a very, very popular series that, was kind of before my time. And then in my time, she was Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast. She did the voice for that. She did some voice work.
Yeah, okay.
And she did voice work on Anastasia, which is one of Anna's favorite films.
That's one of my favorite ones too.
That I now watch annually. And yeah, she made an appearance in Mary Poppins Returns pretty recently, a few years back. So just a storied career that, I mean, decades upon decades upon decades of work is really, really crazy. How prolific she was and how much she accomplished in her lifetime. And 96 years is a hell of a lifetime. I mean,
for sure. Yeah, it's incredible.
So yeah, I mean, it feels like a big loss. To quote Wikipedia, the greatest source of all time, she was one of the last surviving stars from the golden age of Hollywood cinema at the time of her death. Which, I mean, it's just really, really amazing what she did.
Turning of a chapter for
so she
that way.
And in her lifetime, she received an honorary Academy Award, a Lifetime Achievement Award from the BAFTA, a Lifetime Achievement Tony Award, 5 additional Tony Awards, 6 Golden Globes, and an Olivier Award. And she was also nominated for many other things, including Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress on 3 occasions, Primetime Emmy Awards on 18 occasions, and 1 Grammy Award. And she was made a Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire by Queen Elizabeth II, who, by the way, also recently passed away. I don't know that we actually talked about that, but the Queen died. Yeah. I guess they do come in 3s actually, because the fucking Queen died. I don't think we talked about that.
True.
So, don't mean to offend anyone by her exclusion here, but obviously I guess she's on TV a lot. She probably qualifies as someone we should talk about, but we'd be here a long fucking time if we wanted to talk about the Queen.
She's probably responsible for knighting half the people that we recognize as knights.
That's true. That's probably true.
Or not even half of them, probably all the people that I know.
Probably literally all of them that are still alive that we talk about. Yes, I think that's probably true. So yeah, rest in peace to Dame Angela Lansbury and the Queen.
And the Queen.
And with that, we will move on to talking about video game shit. You gotta love it here. You gotta love it. Hard transitions, baby. Hard transitions.
Keeping it rolling.
I think the Queen would want us to talk about a Mortal Kombat sequel, don't you? Is that offensive to say, or is it just funny?
Well, I think it's pretty funny.
Okay, all right, just checking.
I can just see her. I can see her scowling while she shakes her head.
Oh man. I don't think there was any way to pull the transition off, but I think I made it worse by getting into the Queen. So I really dug my own hole, is what I'm saying. And I'm going to continue shoveling as we talk about video games and video games, because I literally have 6 straight things that are video game adaptation related. So buckle up. And not one of them is the fucking Mario trailer, which we'll talk about on another episode. But that fucking came out.
Yeah, that did come out.
So we'll talk about that later. We're playing big catch up in terms of news. We've got shit stacked up from like months prior. There's a whole fucking stack of Marvel shit that we're not even going to touch. Star Wars trailers and the like. This is what happens. We really do got to be regular about this shit. We got to watch movies. We got to record more regularly, and then we can get back to business and have like hour and a half, hour 45-minute episodes, sub 2 hour episodes. That would be great.
Bite-sizers.
Alas, here we are. So, yes, Mortal Kombat sequel. It's happening. It is officially happening. New Line is moving forward with it, and they're bringing back Simon McQuoid as director. Of course, he directed the first one. And that's really all the detail that we have on it.
I think it's enough. I think that's enough news for that. He did a pretty banging job with the first one, I thought.
Yeah, solid enough. It wasn't an amazing film, but it was a fairly entertaining and mostly faithful, I think, adaptation of Mortal Kombat, aside from the addition of the fucking loser main character that no one cared about.
The create your own character guy?
Yeah, the create your own character guy was kind of lame. I was like, I didn't really need the insert character to guide me through it. I think you could have had a Johnny Cage or a Liu Kang fill that void, but nonetheless, we're going to get a Mortal Kombat sequel, and I expect it will be quite bloody, quite gory, and maybe it'll actually have a fucking tournament this time. Maybe it will actually have a Mortal Kombat in it. That would be good. So yeah, sure, why not? I think it felt like a movie that existed for the purpose of setting up a sequel, almost in a certain sort of way. So it would have felt real dumb for it to not get one. So hopefully, as a if they make a sequel, then they play well off each other, and it almost helps justify the first film's depiction of everything before the tournament. Once we get to the tournament, it's like, okay, the build-up was worth it, or something like that. So we'll see. No timeline for this, but surely it's at least a couple of years away, if not longer. So Mortal Kombat sequel on tap. But again, we have lots of video game adaptations to look forward to, including this next one, an adaptation of a PlayStation game called Gravity Rush, which is coming from PlayStation Productions, and it's kind of interesting because I never really perceived this as a video game that was terribly popular to the point where making a film based on it would seem even remotely fiscally viable. But here we are. So it was a 2012 video game that was originally released on the PlayStation Vita.
Say no more. That's why.
Remember the fucking Vita? It was later ported to at least the PS3 or 4, and it also got a sequel, which I think was released directly to PS3/4, possibly both. I can't remember exactly. And it was a fucking cool ass game, like really interesting gameplay mechanics where you manipulate gravity, and so it's kind of I don't know, I guess Portal-esque and how it uses physics to change its gameplay of choosing where you want to fall toward. If you want, it's actually kind of like lashing, I guess, in video game form. If you want to make a comparison that you'll understand best, I think.
Yeah.
It's a Brandon Sanderson Stormlight thing for the people listening that don't understand that. But you can manipulate gravity, and you got monsters and shit that you fight. And I think the whole thing was like she forgets who she was. And so it's a pretty traditional anime type story of figuring out who you are and what your purpose is in the world and whatnot.
Oh, it's totally lashing, dude.
Yeah. So that's kind of the...
it's about a windrunner.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of thing that could be really visually interesting for a film. And I think that the story is pretty basic enough that I think that could totally work. And I think that it's probably something that they're going to sell more on the fact that it looks cool than on the fact that they're banking on people being like, oh, fucking Gravity Rush, holy shit. Fucking love this shit, dude. Like, for the 19 people that played it on the Vita, great, good for them, obviously. But I think for the most part, it's really going to have to stand on its own two legs, I think, to be successful. So they've hired a screenwriter, I think, and a producer. A director. I'm sorry. Anna Mastro is going to direct it from a script by Emily Jerome. I don't know who these women are, but I think that it's good for them that they got this job. So we put our faith into them. It looks like the director has mostly worked on the TV side of the house, and the screenwriter is an up-and-coming screenwriter, apparently, who made the 2017 Blacklist, which is like unmade scripts with a script called Panopticon, which has a cool title, so it's probably pretty cool. So that's what's going on. That's another video game adaptation in the works right now. Probably also a couple of years away. So what are you thinking about that?
But I mean, I would like to have a
just a proper Stormlight adaptation.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
But this could be a stepping stone, perhaps.
It could be like a tech demo of what a Windrunner would look like.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool. I'll take it.
Yeah. Figure out how to, if they could do it practically in some way of, like I feel like the Inception, like moving a hallway thing, like the way they built that set, you could do something similar to that.
You'd have to just change their like perception, like of how they're falling, you know. But it looked like the game really. I mean, I just watched I was watching a trailer for the game when you're talking about it, and it looks like the game captures that really well. So
yeah, I think I got the platinum trophy. Yeah, can you believe that? I think I got the platinum trophy for the first game, and I never played the second game, but I really, really enjoyed the first one. So I'm game for this. I think it could be really cool. Like I said, it's gonna have to stand on its own two legs, but I think the concept is cool enough that it's capable of doing that. So
we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. More things coming from PlayStation. We're getting a Netflix series adaptation of Horizon Zero Dawn. And we've learned that the showrunner of the Umbrella Academy, which is wrapping up on Netflix shortly, Steve Blackman, is going to serve as the showrunner for the series, along with Michelle Lovretta. So I don't know what she's doing. I don't know what she's done, but she's going to be working on this. And, this is, I think, a big franchise thing for Sony right now. They put out the new one on the PS5. I forget what it's called. Forbidden West. Haven't played any of them. I have the first one. It came out, I think, a week away from Breath of the Wild, and it has, I think, fairly similar gameplay, and so it kind of got swallowed alive for me because Breath of the Wild is like one of the greatest video games of all time. But I do want to give it a go at some point. I think it's a really interesting world. This is the one where it's all post-apocalyptic, and there's like robotic dinosaurs and creatures and stuff that wander, and you're like a hunter with like a bow and arrow and shit. But it's like a Fallen Earth type setting, I think, so much as it's like a prehistoric but in a futuristic setting.
Gotcha.
So it's just kind of neat. I think so. Series seems like it could be pretty cool. Seems like a show that's going to need a lot of money, but obviously between all these big fucking major fantasy-esque shows that we're getting on the air right now, that are all getting stupid amounts of money poured into them, why not?
Everybody's got a lot of money.
Repertoire, they got plenty of money to throw around, and so I'm excited to see what they could do with this one. So I haven't watched the Umbrella Academy. I've heard good things about it. So it seems like obviously the Netflix has some familiarity with the showrunner, co-showrunner, I guess, and they're keen to keep working with him. So presumably,
right on, man.
Hopefully, we're in good hands anyway. So that's another thing. Here we go. Outside of the PlayStation purview, although obviously these games have been on the PlayStation, Bioshock is getting an adaptation, a feature adaptation. And
Bioshock. That sounds terrifying. That sounds like a good show.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to be a show. It's going to be a movie coming to Netflix, a Netflix feature film. To be directed by Francis Lawrence, who directed The Hunger Games. And well, could we say that it was well directed, even if it wasn't a good movie? I don't know.
I guess maybe. I don't.
What else has he done?
Seen.
Here we go. He's done Red Sparrow more recently. So, what was your take on that other film that also had Jennifer Lawrence in it?
That was our most downloaded episode of, I think.
Yeah, all the Russians were like, all right, are these guys, can we recruit these guys? Can we get them under our wing? And then they listen and like, I don't think these guys are good candidates for indoctrination. I don't think this is going to happen. They were a little shitty on this film. He also directed I Am Legend. We talked about that recently. Really, really good.
It's not
classic.
getting any better, dude.
Here we go. Water for Elephants. Robert Pattinson. Reese Witherspoon. Come on. Constantine. Keanu Reeves. Constantine. 2005. That's very much his whole filmography. So that you're saying that does not excite you?
Bioshock's a big name. It's a well-regarded series, right? Like it's a big get. It's going to be expensive. There's got to be a huge. I mean, I guess you could probably make it practically. You can make this movie practically.
Yeah, you can get a big daddy suit.
Yeah, you can make a badass
a small child to be a little sister.
Yeah, you can make a badass practical set. You can make a badass practical movie with Bioshock. I don't think they'll go that route. I think they'll probably just go very fucking expensive, especially if the guy directing the movie has we don't want to make a vampire guy for I Am Legend. We need to make a CG monster with like a anaconda jaw for I Am Legend. We won't have real people. We're just gonna make CG monsters. Mm-hmm. So he's definitely gonna lean on that. Out of all the people to direct your shit, why would you put this guy on the Bioshock movie?
It says that the studio has been high on Lawrence since the spring, as he is someone who has shown the ability at adapting popular IPs into global hits. So, Hunger Games make good money. Get this guy on board. Yeah. Make good money. Right. We like good money. Good money. Get this guy. So I guess that's the logic. Is he's handled adaptations before. He's no stranger to them. He's no stranger to directing entirely. And I guess, I think especially, I mean, the Hunger Games are probably fairly effects-intensive movies, and I think, with kind of dystopian sets and stuff like that. So, it's not exactly the same type of setting, but still grand scale. He's done it before. He's done it before multiple times. That probably helps.
Yeah.
Is it an inspiring choice? No, not for me.
No.
And I think Bioshock, especially, well, my frame of reference is the first one because that's the only one I've played. Despite I think owning 2 and Infinite, I haven't played either. First Bioshock's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible.
The setting is awesome. Just the
atmosphere,
like the atmosphere, the sound design, and the gameplay's fun too, especially when you get like the power ups or whatever they're called. It's a very cool setting, and just I think it could make for a really, really powerful, and impactful film. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, obviously, whether this is going to be that. I think it really depends on how you adapt it, which I think depends on
what
the
I think would be cool?
Yeah,
I picture when I think of Bioshock as a movie, I think of Pandorum. Who directed Pandorum? Do you remember that?
I do remember Pandorum. I don't know who directed it. I feel like that wasn't a terribly big film, so I'm guessing it wasn't a super.
I don't know why that came
director.
to my mind.
But we'll find out. We'll find out who directed it. It was directed by Christian Alvart, who, again, it doesn't look like he has a very extensive filmography from what I'm seeing.
They could have probably got him for a lot less money.
Probably. And he's German, so he's directed a lot of German stuff, is what it looks like. Okay, that makes more sense.
Pandorum's definitely not like an incredible movie or anything, but it's pretty cool though.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. It was a neat idea.
Yeah, one of those high concept, and probably not enough money to actually make it as grand or whatever as it probably intended to be, but solid nonetheless.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super game for a Bioshock movie. But yeah, none of this necessarily inspires confidence for me. But I'm hopeful. I think there's certainly a way to do it well, and I think there's a way to do it.
It could be a very cool movie for sure.
So there's definitely a lot of potential here, and so we'll say give us a trailer and maybe that's what will dictate, whether this is which pile this is going to go in of shit video game adaptations, which is 95% of them, or have we finally turned a corner and we figured out how to fucking make video game movies. Like, I would love for that pile to increase. I'd like to stack things in that pile, because it feels like, based on obviously what we're talking about and still have to talk about, they're making a very concerted effort to make more of these things. So put some care into it, some attention to it, and you got good source material, make it pop on the screen. It's completely doable, I think.
Yeah.
So Bioshock, it's coming. It's in the pipeline. Last on the news front before we hop over to some trailers, I think this one's going to need some serious heavy lifting on the screenplay front. We're getting a film adaptation from Sony and PlayStation of Gran Turismo.
Jesus Christ. Of all the movies to make after video games, you pick Gran Turismo?
Yeah, you pick the one that has no fucking narrative whatsoever. It's a blank slate. All you need to do is incorporate cars. And it's not the first time. Well, maybe
Fast
it's the
and
first time
Furious,
Sony and PlayStation are doing this. Well, we had Need for Speed. Yeah, with fucking
Right.
with fucking Jesse Pinkman. So, and that was the same thing. Although, to be fair, some of the Need for Speed games have had narratives to them. So that one wasn't like totally out of bounds. Gran Turismo is just a fucking driving simulator. There's no story.
I have an idea.
Finish in first place.
I have an idea.
All right, I'm all ears.
Next Netflix. I'm gonna next Netflix show. Okay. Flight Simulator. A movie called Flight Simulator, and it's just about people making a flight simulator, whatever the fuck. It's about the same thing as Gran Turismo, which is a driving simulator. I don't understand it. I'm out of all the things they could. Why not? Why is none of the news? Hey, Sony's making God of War.
Yeah, they do seem quiet on that front. It's like, that shit just makes itself. You know what I mean?
Right. You could literally make an animated God of War and just fill in your cutscenes with, you
just watch the videos. Maybe that's what they think. Like, people have already done the YouTube compilations of all the cutscenes, and especially with the newer ones where it's like one take anyway. Like, it's already just kind of a movie. Like, what's there to do? But that didn't stop them from making Uncharted, even though those are basically fucking movies too. So,
Jesus, I don't know.
Anyway,
okay, that's happening.
So actually, in looking at this more deeply, yes, it helps if you actually read the article. The casting is kind of the new news for this thing. Apparently, it has been known that they're making this movie. It was news to me, so I think it's probably news to you.
Directed by Neil Blomkamp also.
It's being fucking directed by Neil Blomkamp. Okay, great. It's going to star David Harbour and Orlando Bloom, and Archie Madekwe, who I'm guessing is playing the protagonist, because wouldn't you know it, there's a log line of what the film is about. And honestly, I'm curious to hear your take on it, I'll say. Based on a true story, the film is the ultimate wish fulfillment tale of a teenage Gran Turismo player whose gaming skills won a series of Nissan competitions to become an actual professional race car driver.
Hold on, well, there's a lot to unpack here. What the fuck?
All right, where do you want to start?
Just repeat one more time.
Okay. Based on a true story, the film is the ultimate wish fulfillment tale of a teenage Gran Turismo player whose gaming skills won a series of Nissan competitions to become an actual professional race car driver.
Okay, so this guy learns how to drive professionally within Gran Turismo, and
presumably he's using the real steering wheel setup. One would suspect he's not playing with a controller. Playing with a controller is for peasants, and he does not do that. Would be my guess.
No.
Okay.
He's using it as a driving simulator, and then he becomes a real race car driver based off of his...
Yeah, he wins competitions somehow, but I don't know if, I think he's...
So they're going to start him off...
He's winning.
They're going to start him off playing...
He's just fucking playing straight up Gran Turismo.
So it's going to be like, I'm playing this game, I win this competition, now they put me in a race car, and I get to try to race a car, and that's going to be the end of the movie. He wins the racing competition in a real car.
And a real car, yes. I think that's the movie. I think you just nailed it. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I guess.
I mean, I guess it's a direction. I mean, that is how you make a Gran Turismo movie. I guess.
It is. I guess it seems probably like a feel-good, more family-friendly driving thing. And in my head, I was just like because like my brain, I think of driving movie, I just go to Fast and Furious now, right? That's the default. I just assumed it would be something like that, and this is not that. I guess somewhat to its credit.
I have my flight simulator idea pitch for you. Are you ready?
Yeah. All right.
A flight simulator teenager, right? Plays flight sim all the time. Okay.
Sure.
He goes on a flight to see his grandparents across the country away or whatever, and both pilots suffer major heart attacks or something, right? There's nobody else that can fly the plane. Who are we going to get to fly the plane? Does anybody on this plane know how to fly the plane? I know how to fly a plane. And he saves the fucking day, flies the plane, and lands.
Yeah. And the passengers are doubting him because, like, you played video games. Video games are useless. They don't teach you anything. They're just rotting your brain out. And he says, no, I can prove my worth because I can fly a real plane.
Yes. That sounds like an excellent pitch.
Just like my dad, Tom Cruise, who was a real pilot who died when I was young. But he showed me, he raised me on Microsoft Flight Simulator. And and that's how that was his lasting legacy, was inspiring this love for flying. I think this is great. I think I love this. We're going to put pen to paper pretty soon.
Send it out to Netflix?
Yeah.
Or
I think
Sony. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be Sony, it'd be Microsoft.
No, Sony would be pissed. Well, the thing is, we needed to have it come out the same time as Gran Turismo because, as we all know,
competition, right?
Yeah, like movies that are almost identical to each other always have to come out within a few months of each other. Otherwise, you really run the risk of just being a copycat. So I think that we'll have to step on it. We'll actually, in fact, need to get it out in the next 10 months because Gran Turismo drops in August of 2023. Apparently,
we got a lot of groundwork to go. We got a lot of ground to cover.
But all we need, it's a pretty simple set movie. Most of it's going to be isolated to an airplane. So we just got to find an airplane to we'll be good. We'll be fine.
The movie sounds lame as shit. I am not excited about Gran Turismo.
Yeah, it sounds pretty lame, but I guess it's a different quadrant, I think, of an audience. It feels more PG than, like a God of War would be. A God of War would not be a PG or a PG-13 movie. So if you're appealing to different audiences and you're trying to look for like ways to do that, like Gran Turismo is not a bad one to just. It's a clean driving movie. A clean driving game turned into a clean driving movie. No guns, no nothing like that. Just driving. Just a heartwarming, Lifetime-esque tale of a boy who dreamed to drive.
You could write the taglines, dude.
All right. Trailer time.
All right. What do we got?
Finishing up the video game side of things with the... Are you tired of it yet? Aren't you glad that I held Mario for another episode?
Oh, shit.
Coming soon to HBO is a series adaptation of The Last of Us. It's coming out next year. We have an official teaser for it with Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey as Joel and Ellie. We have our first look at it, and it looks quite video game accurate, I would say.
Yes, it looks outstanding. This looks
which is a good thing. This is one of those video games where you want it to be like the video game, which I think, similar to Uncharted and similar to God of War, was extremely narratively driven. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
You don't really need to fix it. Yeah, you need to find a way to fill in. If it's a 12-hour game, you need to find a way to fill in those times. You need to really capitalize on the most tense moments of gameplay. Mm-hmm. And the tense moments where it's where it's like a fucking movie, but the creators did an excellent job. I mean, you don't have a lot to like convert. The
template's there. You just have to adapt it.
That's right.
And it feels, I mean, like the production design, the visuals of this all looks spot on. The designs of the clickers looks spot on. And
it looks terrifying.
Just the tone and feel of it, even like so the music choice feels very true to the games. Like, it feels like this is one of the rare times where someone making a video game thing actually liked the video game in the first place and didn't just think it was a thing for kids that, you know, like, oh, I can do this better. Like, and we know that
it's Chernobyl, right?
It's the Chernobyl guy, right? Exactly. Which, you know, was probably why it looks good. I think that they've already kind of talked about how, like, you know, because it's going to be a TV series, like, you know, there's not a 30-minute shootout like there is in the video game in every single episode where you're just, you know, fighting off people or clickers or whatever for you know, in a huge extended gameplay type segment. Like, that's the kind of thing they're basically being like, yeah, we're not really going to have that because that's not really how it works in a narrative format for like a television medium. And I think that makes total sense. You'll have obviously tense encounters here and there. You'll have standoffs with people, I'm guessing, but it's not going to feel like you're playing or you're watching someone play a video game for an hour every week. You know, I think that's the way you have to do it. You retain the narrative properties of it, maybe expand on things. And it looks like this delves into the past in some ways because you see Riley, who I think was like a sort of love interest character for Ellie in the Left Behind prequel or DLC, I guess, like a DLC prequel that they did. But yeah, it looks really fucking good. It looks like it stands out to me, the one shot where they're looking behind in the truck. I should say I've been playing the PS5 remake of the first game, and like there's the shot where they're looking back in the truck as like shit's on fire, and that's like day zero or whatever, you know, like for
the very
Joel's
beginning
life.
of the game.
Very beginning of the game, and it looks like fucking straight out of the video game. Not in a bad way, and like a truly faithful adaptation and like visual realization of it.
Fun fact: I have not beat the first Last of Us. Never beat it. I got a good ways through, and I can't remember what happened or what have you, but I didn't end up beating it. I thought it was an incredible game, but the funniest thing is when the game started. Mm-hmm. I you know, the game started, it had a big cinematic thing, and then like my character wouldn't move. Like, I thought maybe the game was frozen. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck's going on with this video? I gotta restart this shit. I gotta rewatch this shit. No, it was waiting for input because like you couldn't tell the difference between the cutscene and when you needed to play. I was like, oh man, this game's incredible. You know, that's when I really got into it. But yeah, no, it was. I'm excited about this. This is going to be great.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I would recommend. Do you have a PS5 now? I can't remember. You're still rocking the PS4. Okay.
No, I'm not even really rocking that. I mean, I have it, but I don't.
It's around somewhere. It's maybe hooked up, maybe not. Who's to say? Yeah, give the, you know, because there's it was the original was on the PS3. They remastered it for the PS4, and then they remade it for the PS5. You know, with the new engine from the second game. So that's what I've been playing is the full on remake of it. And it looks a lot better than the PS3 one. I'll tell you that. But it's you know, it's functionally and you know, and pretty much identical otherwise.
I gotcha.
It doesn't really change. It's not like the Final Fantasy VII remake where they just like, we're going to change the whole fucking story. So Last of Us is coming out next year on HBO. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great. My bold prediction. All right, so we shall finish off with 4 straight movie trailers. Beginning with Devotion, which we had Top Gun this year, but now we have Top Gun, but during World War II.
I'll take it. That sounds cool.
Also still with Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick, which
nice.
You know, Anna and I talked about it because we saw the trailer in front of the Woman King when we watched it, and it was just, you know, it's obviously funny that, you know, months apart for this guy's career, he's just fucking doing flying movie shit. And I'll tell you what, I think he's going to be in Microsoft Flight Simulator pretty soon. I think he's our guy. I think he's got to be at the top of the casting list. I think he's our guy.
True. He could do it.
His dad's Tom Cruise. Come on, bring them all back, baby. You know, I think we got a winner there. But obviously we have Jonathan Majors playing, I think, the lead character in this too, and so dude's crushing it. Great,
Jonathan Majors.
Yeah. He's crushing it. I like him a lot. I think this looks pretty good. You know,
I agree with you.
Seems pretty well put together, well made. The sequences seem dazzling. Obviously very different from the modern day aerial combat stuff that we're getting in Top Gun. But I feel like I never watched Midway, which was the World War II one that came out a few years ago. But I feel like I haven't seen a good, I guess Dunkirk would probably be the last thing with like World War II aerial combat. And that was like Christopher Nolan-esque disorienting aerial combat. This feels a little bit more, or a little bit less chaotic in terms of how it's being depicted. But, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it looks really good. I do like Jonathan Majors. I think he's a good actor. And I think it deals with what is the it's part of the flight crew. It's like the group of, it's a group of black pilots from World War II.
Tuskegee Airmen, I think, is who you're thinking of. And I'm looking this up. This is not even. This is actually not even in World War II. This is in the Korean War.
No, that's true. They talk about that.
Which is why they're saying it's in America's forgotten war. And I was like, I guess people didn't really forget about World War II. That does check out. So roughly around a decade ish after World War II. So still around that time period. Obviously, segregation and racism is ever prevalent in the country. And I think that obviously is a huge part of this film, and obviously,
and I think it's a really good opportunity.
Dynamics in that time, but that's kind of interesting that it's not World War II. Actually, now that I think about it,
yeah, something different that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, and I think that when you put two airmen together, I mean, as much as having a what's it called when somebody's got your back, you have the pilot and I guess
your wingman.
Your wingman, exactly. When your wingman is white and black during a huge time of like segregation and everything, I think it can be a very powerful movie.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really, really good opportunity to kind of like serve up an awesome story. And some also cool aerial combat and whatnot too. So I'm really excited about it. It's got a really good cast. I think it's waiting to have a powerful story be told. I think it's a really good opportunity as long as they wrote it well. But I think if it got the cast that it did, Jonathan Majors signed on it. I think it probably does have a very good story. I don't think he would just willy-nilly sign to be in a Korean War movie if it didn't have a. He seems like a direction-oriented actor, and so I think it's probably going to be really good.
Yeah, I agree. Looking forward to it, and we can see it exclusively in movie theaters in November. It will be coming out on November 23rd, so it's a Thanksgiving ish release. So a little over a month to wait for that one, but I think it's certainly something that's going to be on our radar, because we're in a cockpit of an airplane, and so we have radar. Okay. And something coming out around the same time frame is Detective Benoit Blanc returning in Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Writer-director Ryan Johnson back, bringing us some more Daniel Craig goodness.
Half a Billy.
With the star-studded cast. Got an official teaser trailer for it. So what do you think? Are you excited? Are your knives out for more Knives Out?
I am. This teaser has a what looks to be like a puzzle table as a centerpiece within the trailer. Yes. Yes. And nothing gets my juices flowing like a good puzzle item. Yeah, so I'm real it looks really great. I'm also excited to see what Half a Bill gets, what you get for half a billion.
I think we might only get half a bill for this one because
it's true, right?
Because there's going to be a third one as well.
So quarter of a bill. What do you get for a quarter of a bill in a whodunit Netflix movie?
Yeah, well, because was that just for the rights, or was that also to make the film too? I can't remember exactly.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, you're right. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't imagine that this is a movie that requires $250 million to make it. But I'm sure that they spent more money on it than they did with the first Knives Out. And granted, if you're spending $500 million on anything, you're gonna yeah, you're going to put some money toward it.
Well, it looks like they spent a tremendous amount of money on cast.
That does seem to be the case. But again, this could be the Knives Out factor could be, oh, this is a really fun, like successful movie. Like I'm going to do it because I want to be a part of it, as opposed to I'm not going to be a part of that unless you pay me $15 million. You know,
Right,
I think
true.
and here we go. Budget is $40 million. So the $469 million that Netflix spent purely on the rights for the Knives Out sequels. Purely on the rights. So they spent $500 million altogether.
He only spent 40.
But 40 mil on the film itself, which again is probably decent. I would imagine the first Knives Out was no more than 30 or something like that. No, same exact budget. We went from $40 million to working with $40 million. I stand corrected.
Jesus.
But he has brought in an impressive cast. Obviously, Daniel Craig back, Edward Norton, Janelle Monáe, Catherine Hahn, Leslie Odom Jr., Jessica Hennick, Madeline Klein, who I honestly don't know, and Kate Hudson and Dave Bautista. You know, so that's pretty fucking solid right there.
It's very solid. I'm very, very, very excited. I love the first movie. I mean, I think it's probably one of the best whodunits that I've ever seen. And I'm very excited about this one.
Yeah, I think it looks awesome. Love Rian Johnson. I think he's like a really creative filmmaker. And this just feels like him in his prime. You know what I mean? Like he's just having too much fun, but in a good way again. And it's a fun setting. It's all in Greece. It seems very colorful. It seems like a really different change of pace in terms of setting and cast of characters from Knives Out that keeps it fresh. But then you still have, obviously, Daniel Craig tethering it all together, you know, being that anchor who just makes it still have that sort of Knives Out-y feel. I'm really excited.
Well, it's not Gaston. What's the guy with the mustache?
Poirot.
Yeah, he's Poirot.
Yeah. But without the mustache. And
without the mustache, yeah.
You know, and without the cannibalistic cast members in that last movie that came out.
Yeah, that's true.
And the anti-vax cast members in that movie, of which there were at least 2. without all the other baggage. You know, so it's good. It's like a good version of that without the baggage. It's better, and it's an original story. It's not even based on a novel. It's just Rian Johnson whipping it up out of his brain. So we'll see what the murder, you know, what the mystery is. I guess I assume it's a murder mystery, but we'll see what the mystery is and whether it's satisfying and whether all the pieces fit together, like that puzzle box on the table or whatever. But looking forward to it. Like I said, November 23rd. Oh, here we go. So this is kind of interesting, and maybe you should pay attention. It is going to get a theatrical release for 1 week only.
Saw that.
From November 23rd to November 29th. And then it will debut on Netflix December 23rd. So right before Christmas. So,
we will be watching it in November and reviewing it in November.
That's right. We're going to get our episode out before it drops on Netflix. That way we almost feel like we're invited to a special premiere of it. Like we're members of the press. We're proper members of the press now. Yes. Yes. Yes, I would like to watch this Knives Out mystery. Yes. Drink my beverage with my pinky out.
Yes.
So really, we're looking forward to that.
Ooh, Jessica Henwick's in it too.
Mm-hmm. Ain't nothing wrong with that, is what I say.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Moving on.
Thank you.
Moving on. Coming to theaters May 26th of 2023. It is the next, well, I think it's the next one. It's one of the next ones, if nothing else, of the live-action adaptations of a classic Disney animated film where you're getting The Little Mermaid.
Oh, my God.
Well, Ariel looks a little different, and obviously that has ruffled some feathers. But you know it, she's still a mermaid, and she's still little, and she can sing, and for some people that's enough. Some people that's enough. For some people it's not. But where do you stand on this issue, good sir? People
people are fucking stupid. That's what I think. People are really, really stupid. Like, I can she's black. Okay. Well, let's unpack this. You have a problem because she's black. Is it because, like, you want a real mermaid? Well, like, a real mermaid would be like, I mean, they would have to have, like real fucked up teeth, first of all, because they're eating people, right? Mm-hmm. They sing, and then they sneak sailors, or they grab sailors off of ships and shit, and then they tear them to pieces. Like, I watched this real fucked up movie called The Mermaid. Mm-hmm. It's an A24 film, and it's all fucked up. It's real weird. It's real the fuck. It's way out there. You want mermaids like that in your Disney movie? I don't think so. So, I mean, like, what's the big deal? Can she sing? That's the big thing. Can she sing? And it sounds to me like in this trailer, like she can sing pretty fucking good.
And honestly, like, you think about a lot of the live action adaptations that they've done of like their musicals, like, I really enjoyed the Beauty and the Beast one, but they cast Emma Watson as Belle, and like she can't sing. Like, I still enjoyed it in spite of that fact, but like, aren't you doing yourself a favor if you just
cast somebody that can sing?
Starting point of someone that can sing and act? Like, I don't think we really know anything about Halle Bailey's acting chops, because I think she's principally known for being a musician, but she can she can sure as shit belt him out. You know what I mean? So like.
And it makes it, I mean, for like for the story of The Little Mermaid, it makes it infinitely more powerful that she's a vocalist first and foremost, and she sells her voice. You know,
yeah,
it makes the story better, I think. But I think that the people that are bitching about The Little Mermaid being black, just they really have their head way up.
They might be a bit racist, is what you're saying?
I think they might be yes. I think there's a deeper problem.
Might be some prejudice that is deep rooted, even if they don't want to fess up to it.
Like, what's the problem? It's a retelling of The Little Mermaid, and she's black. What?
Like, if you want your white Little Mermaid, you got the cartoon. You're good.
That's it.
They're not going back and scrubbing that, and and.
Oh man, it's like, what's the deal? Like.
Honestly, I think, look, I'm just saying, like, I think if we're going to die on the hill of casting in this, Melissa McCarthy as Ursula feels like a fucking miscast.
Man. Yes! I was talking about that at work. You want to bitch about anything.
That's the thing that I'm like, that makes me less excited for this fucking movie.
Yes. Like, you want to be, like, if anybody should, like, I mean, if Ursula should probably be black, I think. I think she should be a black actress. I think she plays an octopus. Octopuses are dark, but she could play a fucking octopus. And you could get Lizzo. You could get some badass people to play.
I think Lizzo would have been a fucking excellent Ursula. It's a missed opportunity, without a doubt.
I don't know, but Melissa McCarthy just isn't right. I can tell you that.
Anyway. She's gonna have to channel the non-comedy version of herself, I think, for it to be. I just think she's too often over the top and overbearing, and I think that that's not what you want Ursula to be. Like Ursula is an over the top character and an overbearing character, but not in a Melissa McCarthy-esque sort of way. Like, she's almost a step beyond that.
No, she's like a terrifying character.
Ursula's still menacing. Ursula's still like a scary villain at the same time, and still grand and everything, but like not like a joke. Not like a joke.
Not like
character,
no.
So I fear we're going to get the Jafar treatment here in terms of making the villain less effective in the jump from animation to live action. And I hope I'm wrong, but that doesn't excite me. That's the thing that stands out to me of like, I think the teaser it's a good teaser. It tells you everything you need to know, from the jump of how it's going to look and kind of what we're getting, and and how she's going to sound, and
which sounds good.
Yeah, that's good. It's got Daveed Diggs as the voice of Sebastian. I just saw that. I think that's very exciting. Awkwafina's in it, so there you go. Javier Bardem is King Triton.
Perfect.
Fucking cool.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And it's got Lin-Manuel on it too.
Lin-Manuel is working on some new music for it with Alan Menken, who's like the fucking guy. He's the Disney guy who made all that shit. So he won 2 Oscars for the music in the animated version of The Little Mermaid, and also worked on Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin. Like, he's the fucking guy. So him plus Lin-Manuel, I think we're in for some goodies with this.
And Dion Bebe is your cinematographer here, responsible for Memoirs of Agojie and Collateral, and won Live Die Repeat.
Well, there you go.
Cinematographer from Live Die Repeat.
Oh, all right.
Dion Bebe.
Dion Bebe.
He's not French. He's actually South African. But
okay.
But it sounded like spelling of
it.
it.
French accent. Yeah, okay.
Dion Bebe. Yeah, it's like Villanueva. You make it sound Spanish.
Like Dennis. Yeah, sure. So May 26th of 2023, The Little Mermaid will be coming out. I'm sure we'll get another trailer on it, and I'm sure we'll get another round of people being fucking pissed. But you know what? Deal with it.
If anybody's going to be pissed, you're pissed about Melissa McCarthy, please.
Yeah. That's the thing. When the trailer comes out and they show Melissa McCarthy, I want to see the outrage there, unless she sells it. I'll give her an opportunity to sell it. Just not confident.
It's true.
Not confident. But I know one directorial wizard who knows how to sell his shit, who manages to continually impress with his filmography, and that is, of course, Damien Chazelle.
Ooh.
Came out of the scene with Whiplash, broke out in a big way with La La Land, followed it up with a different flavor of film and First Man, and he's back. And he's telling a story about Hollywood and Babylon, which we got an official trailer for. We watched an uncensored version of it, which was, there's some titties in this trailer, I guess. So, if you're afraid of titties or don't like titties, then don't watch this version of the trailer. But otherwise, it's, I think, probably functionally identical to the other version of the trailer, I guess.
I don't think I saw this trailer. Actually,
you didn't watch the trailer? Is that what you're saying?
No, I've seen this. I've seen the Babylon trailer.
You saw the titty-free trailer, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not even a Red Band trailer. Like, a Red Band trailer is traditionally where you get away with this sort of thing, and they're just like, no, we're just going to put it up. It's the exact same trailer. It's just got titties in it. Like, like free the nipple. Like, people can get over it at this point in their lifetimes. Like, it's fine. But we got a great cast here. Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, set in 1920s LA. Coming to theaters literally Christmas. Select theaters on Christmas, and then everywhere else January 6th. It looks very, very well shot, very colorful.
Yes.
And it
acted.
It feels like a Damien Chazelle film in all the right ways. So I'm looking forward to it. How about you?
Yeah, no, definitely. When Damien makes a movie, you just kind of he's one of those directors. You just show up.
You pay attention.
That's it. Yep. We are blessed to live in a time where we live. I feel like there's through the decades, there's always been directors of that caliber. Mm-hmm. But we've got some real good. I mean, there's a handful of directors that when they choose to make a movie or a project, you just show up and you watch it, and and Damien is definitely one of those guys. I'm on a first name basis with Damien. That's why I keep calling him by his first name. But yeah, fabulous director. And he's you can tell he's a passionate filmmaker. And I'm excited about this movie. I'm real excited about it.
Yeah, me too. I also forgot there's a couple shots of a crazed looking Tobey Maguire as well.
Yeah.
So that's always good. I'm
watching the trailer now. There's definitely titties in this trailer.
Yeah, it's very, it's very, I just can't even believe they would do such a thing. Put titties in a trailer. Ridiculous.
Absurd.
But it looks great. I'm very much excited for it. Feels like it's been ages since First Man came out. Feels like it's been a minute since we've had a Damien Chazelle thing, and him kind of taking on old Hollywood is a fun concept. I mean, I feel like we get at least one like Hollywood set film a year, but
well, and to call back to your the actress that passed away, And this is kind of like her. I guess this is before her era, though, isn't it? She started acting in the 40s.
She did. Yeah, she started. Yeah. She would have been born in the 20s, I think. So.
Yeah.
Oh. But anyway,
Anyways.
looking forward to it. We'll see if we're special enough to have theaters carrying it around Christmas time. But at worst, we'll catch it sometime in January, and we'll talk about it, I think. So that will do it for the news, the many video game adaptations, and the other miscellaneous trailers that we had on tap. So, shall we move on to The Woman King?
We shall move on to The Woman King.
Okay, it was released in theaters exclusively on September 16th, almost a month ago. We are quite late to the party, in fact. But we're here now, and that's what's important. And it was written by Dana Stevens, directed by Gina Prince Bythewood, stars Viola Davis, Thuso Mbedu, Lashana Lynch, Sheila Atim, and John Boyega. It is about General Naniska of the Agojie, the all-female unit of warriors who protected the African Kingdom of Dahomey in the 1800s, who trains the next generation of recruits and readies them for battle against an enemy determined to destroy their way of life. So, shall we do a box office breakdown?
Box office breakdown.
Been a while since we had one of those,
Yeah,
I feel like.
I know. It feels good, though, doesn't it? I think it feels really good. We're back, baby.
That's it.
So it's, yes, it has been out for nearly a month. So we have a few different, numbers to work from. What I can say is that The Woman King ended up with $19 million in its opening weekend run domestically, which exceeded the $12 million that it was projected to make. So I think you could say that it was a success. I think overall, I think it got a really, really good cinema score. I think like an A or an A+, which I think suggests that the A+ cinema score, just check that, which I think suggests that it has a very good word of mouth. And so since then it has made a little bit more money. Right now it stands at $54 million domestically, adding on an additional $10 million internationally for a worldwide total of $64 million, which was budgeted at $50 million. So, I think it's got pretty limited international numbers. I'm not sure if it just hasn't had a big international release, but I think domestically it's certainly done, I think, fairly well for what it is, in terms of the type of film that it is. And obviously, I think the timing as well. I think what we could say right now is that the box office has been in quite a lull recently. I mean, August was just fucking dreary. There was nothing that came out in August. There was that fucking Idris Elba movie where he fought a lion, and that didn't make any money because I mean, honestly,
it's Idris Elba fighting a lion.
I mean,
right?
honestly, I'm not mad about that premise, but I don't need to go to a theater to see it. In fact, it's on Peacock now if you want to watch it. No idea if it's any good or not, but there you go. There's something you can do with your life. But yeah, it just kind of feels like there really hasn't been a big thing that's come out. I think Smile, did okay. As a horror movie, entering the October, as we're in spooky season, fully in spooky season now. I think it's done pretty well to kind of jumpstart that. I think the hope is that Halloween Ends does pretty well at the box office, and hopefully it's better than the last one. Otherwise it's not going to get a very good word of mouth, and I think it's going to tank, and crater in the box office. But something that we actually haven't talked about, and this is I recognize this is a bit of a tangent. Something I think that I put the trailer on our list of things to cover, and then by the time we recorded, it just didn't make the cut. And now the movie's just fucking fully out and completely bombing. Is a film called Amsterdam. I don't know if you saw any trailers for this at any point, but it's Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, and John David Washington. And it just
how'd that do?
It just completely bombed. $6 million in its opening weekend.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it
looked better than a $6 million reception.
It's a movie that I think cost a decent amount of money based on that. This is one of those where I think they paid for the cast a little bit more so. and it's expected to lose around $100 million or so. So,
oh my gosh,
just
terrible
just
flop.
a huge fucking disaster kind of thing. And apparently, it's also not very good, which is probably part of the problem. Is again, part of the problem obviously is your movie's not making a whole lot of money week one, and that's bad. But if it's also a shit movie, then the people that did go see it are going to walk out and say, "This movie kind of sucks. Don't bother." And then no one's going to go. So I think
is that what's happening here? I mean, like, what's the RT score on that? Oh man, that really sucks.
33%. It looks like,
Jesus,
which is pretty rough for a movie with a stacked cast and a well-known director.
It looked like it had an interesting concept too. I mean, it looked interesting on the trailer.
Right. So it just it's kind of an unmitigated disaster, but not everything has to be an unmitigated disaster to bring it back to the Woman King. Things can just be pretty successful in their own right, and I think that's what the Woman King has done. I think it's been pretty consistent week to week. I don't think it's it dropped 40% its second weekend. It dropped another 38%, then another 24%. Like it's holding pretty strong, and I think that's helped with its domestic box office numbers. And I will say, for my money, I saw it on a Monday afternoon, which to be fair would have been the holiday. And it wasn't like a full theater, but it was a rowdy theater. And people were fucking into this movie. I'll tell you that. A lot of clapping, some hooting and hollering, people having conversations. It was a hell of a time for our cinema, I would say. So I don't know if you had a similar experience when you saw it. You would have seen it over the weekend, right?
Yeah, so I saw it on when did I see this? I saw this on Sunday. I saw it Sunday at 1:00. It was the first showtime. And I was the minority at the showtime. And it generated some cheers. There were a lot of cheers, and it made me feel really cool to be present in that viewing.
Yeah.
It was really cool. Because it felt like, to me, it felt just like a celebration, man. It felt like a celebration of a movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Which was like I said, to just to be in the same room as a lot of people, celebrating the culture and everything else. It was really cool to be a part of. So I think that was awesome. Is it awesome? It was probably, I don't think it was my favorite theater experience, but it was certainly probably one of the most profound.
Yeah, I mean,
it was really cool.
Helped you engage with it in a certain sort of way.
Right, it gave me an appreciation for the movie in a different light, which was pretty cool. That I otherwise would not have got watching it on my couch.
Sure.
So that was very cool. Very thankful for that experience. I do think that this movie, to me, in my opinion, it felt like what's the best way to put it? It felt like a pro-woman movie, first and foremost, and like a slavery movie second. You know what I mean? It felt like the slavery stuff was like in the passenger seat.
It was there, but it wasn't. That's not what it was about.
No, it was very much about women having power. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, which I think is symptomatic of it being written and directed by women. I think that and produced by women.
It's true.
I think it shows the voice is different when it's not men leading the charge, which is, I think, 9 out of 10 things even to this day. You know what I mean? So
yeah, sure. And so I understand the criticisms that, hey, listen, they kind of glossed over this because I think the women that wrote this movie were white. But at the same time, the director was black, and I think that it was it felt like a really well-rounded celebration of culture, and it felt like a very empowering movie for women. You know what I mean? I thought it was incredible. I think on a lot of different fronts. It's not without its shortcomings, though.
Sure.
And I do think that it's really important to sing the praises of the movie because it and what it sought to do. I thought it succeeded at. I think. Hats off to what is it, Viola Davis?
Yeah, Viola Davis. Yeah.
Oh my God, she's killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's got to be like 60 years old, and she's up there kicking ass and taking names and shit.
Yeah, 57. So pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, 57 years old, just kicking ass.
Yeah.
Also, there's that one chick who's just like beast mode. She's the one that teaches the little girl. What's her name?
The actor or the character?
The actor. What's her name?
I think Lashana Lynch, I assume, is who you're talking about?
Let me Google her. Yes, it is Lashana Lynch. Kudos to her. Oh, it's the same girl that was in, oh man. Yeah, she's been in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I think
I didn't realize she was so
Marvel?
jacked. She
She might have gotten a little jacked for this. She might have gone on a Marvel diet for fucking, for this shit. Because they're all
what happened.
Well, I mean, I assume so. I mean, even Viola Davis probably. I have to imagine that all the women put some training into into their bodies to kind of prepare for this movie, because obviously they're all wearing outfits that there's no hiding their bodies.
They're African soldiers in the 1800s.
Right, and I think that's also part of it is like, well, like if you're a convincing badass warrior woman, like you're going to be in pretty good fucking shape. So I think that I just assume that they all, if they weren't already there in their lives, they went on a an equivalent of the Marvel diet of either bulking up or getting their bodies in shape to kind of be able to pull off like a role like this. So I assume.
I thought, yeah. Oh man,
the 300-esque thing too.
Shape.
The same shit that they did for that. So,
yeah, it's everybody's in like peak physical human condition. And the choreography was awesome. The story beats I thought were strong. Some of it was a little. There was only one thing I thought was hokey.
Okay,
but one thing was a little bit hokey. We'll talk about it in spoilers.
Talk about it.
So there's one thing that was hokey. The choreography was awesome. I think when the score was mostly just like really relishing in African culture, I thought it was awesome. A lot of drums and percussion instruments. Yeah. There was one moment in particular that really pulled me out of it, and it just felt like big Hollywood trumpets and stuff. Okay. And it's like, man, come on. He was
getting away from what had worked, previously in the film.
Yeah, like you could make a badass African war score, you know what I mean, without the use of brass. Like I don't feel like that's.
Yeah. I
don't feel like that's of the same culture. You know what I mean? And that might be ignorant, but I don't think so. I don't think they were using brass horns in the 1800s in Africa, So anyways, that's there was only one moment that I can really look at as far as the score goes that kind of pulled me out of the moment and saying, man, that just doesn't sound like it's from the same movie. And then what else was there? It was well acted. The cinematography was pretty cool. It really goes back to the choreography. The choreography was outstanding, from the dances to the fights, all of it. It was a very, I don't know. It's just a really action-packed show with a lot of emotional story beats that felt very, it was just woman-centric. You know what I mean? And as a male, I kind of just don't think about that stuff all the time. But it was really cool. It was a really, really awesome movie. And for it to be based off of true people, a historical place and a historical time, and for it to, kind of like be centered around the slave trade and everything else was even more awesome. I was really impressed with this movie. I thought it was a really good story to tell. Something that hasn't been told, something that I was completely ignorant of, and although it might not be totally historically accurate, I do think that it was an important movie to be made. So I'm really happy it was made.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think before I get into the specifics of like what I enjoyed about the film, and I think in spoilers we'll get into things that I thought were its shortcomings, because I agree in the sense that I think there were things about it that didn't work as well as the rest. Like there's some stuff in it that's like fantastic, works really well, and there's some stuff that I think either could have been cut or reworked, and I think it would have been better for it, but nothing that ever really holds back my overall enjoyment of the film. But before I get too heavily into that, I feel like talking about the issue of how it addresses slavery and how it addresses the historical stuff like that, I again remind our listeners and I guess you as well, like it's a fiction. It's a fictional story, and I think that that's okay. I think it's okay for it to be fictional. And I think I probably said something along these lines when we talked about the trailer of just basically being like, it's okay to be a fictional story as long as you present yourself as a fictional story. And I think to this film's credit, it waded into the issue of the Kingdom of Dahomey's participation in the slave trade way more than I think I expected it to, based on the fact that it was completely absent from the trailer. Like it's a focal part of the story, in the sense that characters in this movie are like, is this okay? Should we be doing this? And that's something that comes up, and okay, so it's not 10 Years a Slave in terms of how it's depicting the cruelty and whatnot of it, but it still gets into things, I think, pretty head on, in a way that I think addresses it enough to at least not be a completely like inert version of this this thing in history. Like it's close enough that it's somewhat historically accurate while still being a work of fiction, a fictional story with a fictional character and fictional characters largely surrounding her. And I think that again, I just come back to the point of that's okay. That's okay. It's inspired by a true story is what I see on the posters and stuff like that. And you know what? It is. It's inspired by this true group of women. It's inspired by this king, and maybe, there's an element in the history of them, maybe wavering on whether they should continue with slave trade. I don't know about that specifically 100%. I know that they were participants in it, and I know that they were participants beyond the events that, beyond the years that this film takes place in. So
right, and I think that's probably very critical. The knowing that the director purposely centered this film at the end of the slave trade with England, mm-hmm. I think that it's a movie about these female warriors. It's not a movie about the slave trade. Yeah,
exactly. I agree with that. And I think ultimately it chose to tell the fictional story of these powerful women. And I think that it did that with the backdrop of not just ignoring the obvious reality of, wow, it's kind of crazy that this African kingdom is participating in slave trade. Like that doesn't that seem like on its face to be completely against every sort of logic that you would imagine is enslaving your own people and selling them for weapons and whatnot. And I think to this film's credit, it acknowledges that was that happened. It acknowledged that was true for this kingdom.
They got rich. They got rich for selling slaves. That's what happened.
And to this film's credit, I think that it doesn't shy away from that, in the sense that it doesn't just completely ignore that it happened. I think that a lot of people, myself included, were expecting it to just kind of take the high road, so to speak, and just completely gloss over that little bit of history. Like, it's inspired by history, but we're gonna get rid of the unsavory details to show this really cool story. And I think that it embraces the historical details while still telling a really cool story that is inspired by true history. And I think that, again, the point is these women. It's not these women, but slavery bad too. It's really about these women and the journeys that they go on, and the bonds that they form with each other, and that they form with the new warriors coming in. I think it tells a really, really gripping story, and it's something that I think it stands out to me because I think all of the characters are really, really well served. I think all of the characters, at least in terms of who the women are, like, all feel like they belong in the story. They all have some part to play, some role within it, and I think that that's really interesting. And I think the king character is kind of interesting too, as kind of someone who's caught in the middle of obviously having this badass warrior women army, and then being in the position of also participating in slavery, and making the decision of, well, how do we deal with that? I think that's obviously kind of where it goes into the less historically accurate details, but the story it tells about these women works. And I think that's what drives the film forward, as you've said, is making it about these women and how fucking cool and badass and powerful, but also like acknowledging that like they're women and they have, there are things that happen to these women that is, that makes them who they are. I think it's a really interesting, and I think it's something again that feels authentic because it feels like it was written and directed by women, and I think it's a viewpoint that it's sometimes pretty clear to see when it's a man writing a woman, and not quite having their finger on the pulse of how you tackle that certain subject. I think they did it really well here. I think overall just capturing that sort of dynamic. To talk about something else that we sort of talked about, I could have done this as a fun fact, but I'm gonna drop it as a mid-episode fun fact. For 4 months before the shoot, the cast of women performed 90 minutes a day of weightlifting with a trainer, and then they followed that by 3.5 hours of fight training with a stunt coordinator, which included running, martial arts, and working with swords and spears. So yeah, they worked their fucking tails off to look the way they did for this film. I think that's pretty clear. I think that was pretty clear even without that knowledge, but there you go. That's how they did it. So talking about the movie itself and just kind of general non-spoilery things, thought just the actual production of it was impeccable. The sets, the costume design was really, really incredible. The performances were really fantastic. I would say pretty much top to bottom. Again, I really thinking about the women side of things, thinking about the Agojie themselves, like Viola Davis fucking crushing it, as you said. I thought that Tuso Mabedu, who is someone who I have no familiarity with, I thought she was really convincing as Nawi. And this is another fun fact that I'll drop. How old do you think she is actually in real life?
This is your central character?
Yeah. Who's 19 in the film and who I think looks younger, and I think is commented as looking younger than that. How old do you think she actually is? Holy shit.
Yeah, she looked like she was like 16 years old.
31 years old.
No way. No way. I don't buy it. You stop it.
It's wild.
Fact checking you right now.
I assume she was like 22 or something like that, and just like looks young, which is obviously true, but to a greater extent. Assuming Wikipedia is accurate here. Says she was born in 1991. I don't, okay. I gotta trust them. I gotta trust Wikipedia. They got sources for everything, probably.
She definitely looks a lot better for her age than I do. I tell you that.
She probably still gets carded at bars, is what I would say. She's had a few IDs confiscated because I thought it was fake. But she was really good. And then Lashana Lynch was fantastic, definitely imposing. Sheila Atim, who I think plays like the confidant of General Naneska, thought she was really, really good too. I thought like the central like core cast of the women were really good, and the other two like trainees I thought were good too, and kind of more minor roles. But yeah, really, really good. Score was excellent. Cinematography was just excellent. I mean, just think like in terms of how well made this movie was. They fucking crushed it from just like a production standpoint. Like really, really, really exceptionally well done. I think the story itself, for 90% of it, is really good. Like it's really powerful. I thought, okay, is it, where is this going? How is it going to deal with training these new characters? Like, what's the story direction? Is it going to be interesting? And I think, again, for 90% of it, I think it actually works really, really well. And how they kind of tie everything together, and the conflict between, these kind of neighboring kingdoms and then I guess the neighboring empire. All of it, I think, works really, really well. You say there's something that was hokey for you. I think there was something that was hokey for me as well. And it's something that could have been hokey for me that I think ultimately actually think worked pretty well. So I'm curious to see if we'll agree on that. But and the action was just really, really well done too. Without being, I mean, it was visceral and it was violent and and fast moving and stuff like that. But it also didn't feel like, blood and guts spilling everywhere, kind of Mel Gibson sort of, shit. Thinking of like Hacksaw Ridge, particularly.
It's not an action. I mean, I guess it is an action movie, but it's not. It feels very much like
it's not about the action, but the action is
exactly.
is still well done. So when it's there,
right.
It's interesting and it doesn't feel perfunctory. It's engaging, and I think the movie succeeds largely on its emotionality, and then I think especially by the end, you get the emotionality fused with the action, and then that really, like, it really sells it all. You get a big set piece up front, like in the beginning, which is like, okay, that's we're like, strap in, like this is the movie you're getting. But then as it kind of really builds back up to the crescendo, I think it does a really good job of making you give a shit by the time shit hits the fan, I think, in the way that it does. So it was just a really, really well done movie. I was very happy with it. If only Sony could make more movies like this and less Venom, Let There Be Carnages and Morbiuses, then we'd be better off. Or as many fucking. Let's hope their video game movies improve. Let's put it that way. But yeah. Recommendation? Where are you going to stand on The Woman King? Would you say it's a very yes? A yes? Totally fine?
I would say that this movie is I'd say it's a yes.
Okay.
Just shy, very, very just shy of a very yes.
So kind of in between then, more so.
More so in between. Yeah, there's a couple moments that pull me out. There's a couple... They're minor, but they're still present, right? So with that being said, it's not a flawless film, which I think a very yes film is. Right? Very yes film's pretty flawless experience, I think. If I was, I guess, holding true to like what I would say is a theater experience worthy movie, I would, maybe I reconsider. Maybe it is a very yes movie. It's really close to a very yes. I think seeing it how you see it.
How you see it?
I think seeing it how I saw it with the, just with the people I watched it with. I think
they were like into it. They were engaged, and it's like, the fuck yeah moments. You got audible reactions, and like, it's like going, it's not the exact same thing, but it's like going to see a Marvel movie on opening night where like people are like fucking into it and losing their minds over this shit, and it's like.
Well, my theater was very much the same thing.
This is not people losing their minds because they did the thing from the comic and oh my god, it's people like looking up at the screen and thinking, holy shit, powerful badass black woman kicking fucking ass and taking names.
Yeah.
And it's like that's like it's like almost like a raw emotional response of like, I've never seen this before on screen. What do I do with my hands? And so and I think that's I got a lot of that in my audience as well. And I'm a white man. I wasn't exactly, participating to the same extent, but I felt it. You know what I mean? Like I still felt it.
I teared up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it was emotionally charged.
You felt it when it was emotional, and even if you weren't, like for me, it wasn't like I've finally been seen. I'm like, no, every fucking movie ever made is all about white people. Like I've been seen a lot. I get it. So, but you can understand like. How raw of an experience it could be to just kind of feel like that. And I think obviously we talked about it before, but I think Black Panther obviously became the cultural phenomenon that it did, in part because it was like, oh, you can do that? You're allowed to do that now? Like they're allowed to make this movie now, and I think that this is somewhat taking a page out of that book of just authentically committing to a thing and letting audiences just respect it and enjoy it and revel in it. Like that's the fun thing. I mean,
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun to be a part of that.
With that in mind, with the theater experience in mind, It's a very yes theater experience movie.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would say that on the film level for me, just like if I were to watch it in my living room, I would say it's a yes film approaching a very yes film.
Okay. Yeah.
Theater experience wise, it's a very yes film. So that's what I got. I got a little two part.
If we were to revert to our old movie ranking scale, then you would say go see it in theaters.
Yes.
Okay.
Go see it in theaters.
We haven't busted that one out in a long time because
it's because of COVID and everything else.
COVID
what did it used to
things.
be? What did it used? Can you remember?
That's the hard part, is remembering these things because it's been so long. I believe it was see it in theaters was the top. That's top tier. Followed by the Blu-ray maybe. And then I guess by the 4K now. That's how old it was. 4K wasn't even the dominant format when we did it. And then wait for streaming, and then wait for someone to pay you to see it. I feel like at some point we added the hotel movie category in there as well, which I guess, as we talked about, I think on the special, is somewhat distinct from the flight movie, but along the same lines.
Very yes used to be reserved for our television shows.
Yeah,
right?
We did it for TV shows because it was kind of a different thing. Because TV was always like, well, you're putting 10 hours of your life into it, so like let's give it a little bit more of a qualitative, or I guess more of a quantitative. I think even a ranking scheme. So
right. We'll have to dive back in. We're entering the
if we get back into regular. Back in the groove of covering movies, coming out theatrically
at the theater
regularly, then maybe we move back. Maybe for now we'll offer a both. As we transition back, we don't want to lose people, and confuse them. But
so we're gonna say yes, go see this in theaters because it's a very, very strong yes film. Okay. Go see it in theaters because it's a very strong yes film. It's a good experience in the theaters. Okay. That's what I would say.
I'm going to say it's a very yes film and that you should go see it in theaters. And I do think that there are things that are not amazing in this film, as I said. But to reiterate what I said, I don't think they hold it back enough to hinder enjoyment of the film. I just think they're kind of unnecessary inclusions. And I think that the technical aspects of this film make it stand apart, make it stand out. And that's what elevates it on a you want to experience this in a theater. I unfortunately saw it a few days ago. I didn't get a chance to see it in Dolby or anything, and I think that would have been really interesting and really, really good experience. But it's still worth the theater visit to just kind of engage with it, for the 2+ hours and to kind of live in the world for a couple hours. I think is really interesting. It transports you to kind of a very different thing than what you're used to seeing. But it also highlights how much work obviously was put into it, and all of that work really shows. It's on display, full display in a theatrical setting. And I think that the emotionality, the technicality, all of it kind of really worked well together to the point that I think the narrative largely succeeded. So I think a largely successful narrative paired with a really, really impeccable production design, for me, that's a winning formula. And so I think that's why it's a very yes for me overall. So with that, shall we dive into spoilers for The Woman King?
Let's dive into them.
Full spoilers for The Woman King. So I think maybe we should, I'm curious what's the hokiness for you? What's holding this film back for you?
I had a daughter and I put a shark tooth in her arm.
Yeah, it was a little ridiculous.
And you have a shark tooth in your arm. You're my daughter 20 years later in Africa. Come on, man.
It feels like that would cause some sort of issues. I mean, I guess maybe she's young enough. It's just implanted in there, but like...
What? At some point you think, what the fuck is this thing? I'm going to take it out. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I did in the moment think about, like, would that invite all sorts of medical issues potentially? Like what's that, like what is, how does that actually work in real life? Is that something that could work in real life and be fine? I did kind of forget about it until you mention it now. That is a bit hokey. I guess I agree with you in the sense that I I think as a plot device, because it's that, and it's also the bigger storyline, right? Of
exactly, the whole thing kind of like compounds. Like they made a concerted effort to like make it like like this bigger thing,
right? Like the
and, you're my daughter, and the story angle of like I think it would have probably been even more powerful if she wasn't her daughter.
But she still had a daughter out there somewhere.
She had a daughter out there somewhere, and she harbors the regret of giving her away or whatever. You know what I mean? She's got to live with that, or whatever.
Just living with the literal trauma of, being raped relentlessly, and and having to give birth to a child when that is kind of. They swear this oath. When they join the women, they take no husbands, they have no children, and like, obviously, it's kind of like a difficult situation in the sense that like you can't really blame yourself for being captured and being raped and then and being impregnated and having a child. Like there's no version where you should blame yourself for that, because that's not a situation that anyone should blame themselves for. But you can still feel guilt over it. You can still feel trauma over it, and still feel like I shouldn't have gotten myself captured. I shouldn't have done that. I should have stopped this.
And she's she's one of the most powerful women on the continent of Africa, and she was captured and made powerless.
That puts you in such a vulnerable position where like your whole thing is strength and not being vulnerable, and like that's antithetical to like who we are, as these warriors, and like that. But I think that rawness, that vulnerability, like makes for a really powerful emotional dynamic to the film of how you can reconcile being such a badass woman and dealing with this trauma head on. And I think I agree with you. I think it's hokey in the sense that and how they do it in such a literal head on fashion of having to basically unrelated characters find out they're related, certainly in a somewhat ham-fisted sort of way with the shark tooth is a bit on the nose. I think that there's, I think at first I thought like, oh, she has a birthmark, and like the birthmark is the same as the birthmark of the kid, and I think that could have been simpler.
No, it kept going. It kept going.
And I guess obviously they really wanted to make sure that you knew these two were absolutely mother and daughter. And I think that obviously if it's just a birthmark that's similar, or even if it's identical, there's still the question of, well, maybe she's not, maybe she is. But I think you could still narratively place it that you should accept that she is, because what are the odds that she's the right age and that she has this birthmark, blah, 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 and that she was also an orphan, and like all these things add up to the point where like, okay, you don't literally have the smoking shark tooth, showing that they're related, but you get it. You get that they are. I kind of felt that was a little over the top in how they did that. I think that there's a version of this movie that works probably just as well without them literally being related. I think that is it's a little too far-fetched, I think, in terms of like it just feels tropey in a way that the rest of the movie mostly is not.
Right. No, I agree.
100%. That's and that's where it feels like, well, this is a fictional story, right? It would feel odd if this was something that actually happened. You know what I mean? That would feel like there's no fucking way. You read that on Wikipedia and be like, that's fucking horse shit. No way. And so it's a little Hollywoody, I think, for it to go that direction. I will say, and maybe you disagree, I did find it hokey. I think I found it hokey. I think initially, the shark tooth stuff particularly as well. I do think that it still had a lot of emotionality by the end once I kind of got around it. Just being like, all right, it's a little ridiculous, right? But I felt like the mother-daughter stuff at the end actually was really well done. I think those moments, especially like after the final battle and as it's kind of a little bit quieter, I thought that actually all really worked really well in how they acknowledge each other and how they're these part of each other, and the dialogue they shared I thought was exceptionally well done, of just talking about this relationship, because I think it's an interesting thing to explore of, a mother who obviously, again, in this situation, she's sworn to not bear children, but she was obviously put in such a horrific situation where she didn't have a choice. There was no element of control there. And then now she has this perpetual reminder of that. And like, that's going to create resentment and just really awful set of feelings. And just, you have that trauma in your face every day of your life. And like, how do you deal with that? Like, that's a really fucking awful thing to have to deal with. And I think it did a really touching job of just recognizing, like, you're not a mistake. You're not like, you're not him. You're not the man who raped me. Like, you are a separate thing. I can't blame you that. I don't hold that against you. And to be fair, I've been watching a lot of Law and Order SVU, and Detective Benson herself is also a product of rape, and I think they deal with that a lot of head on, so I've seen kind of a lot of that, like how they handle that in media, and it's a really awful set of circumstances to be faced with, but it feels emotionally resonant and it feels emotionally honest, I think, in this film. I think that's why it works by the end for me. So the hokiness, I got over it, in the sense that it's still hokey, but I think they sold the emotionality of it enough by the end for me to not think that that's a strike against the narrative.
I think that, in my opinion, I think that you have especially since, I don't know, I think that you delete that portion of it, right? I think that you also... I think the darker this movie goes, the more powerful the women seem. That's the way I think about it. You know what I mean? So if you get rid of the heroic slave trader guy, right?
Yeah.
Where he's just a piece of shit kind of guy, and the women stick together, and she goes back in there to save her, because she she's inspired by this young woman's like want to try to keep people safe and keep her people together and all this, And so she inspires the older, jaded general to go back in and try to save her, and she saves her, and this guy had bought her off the slave block, and she dragged her up to the room, and she comes back in and burns the slave trade to the ground and saves her at the end of the story, and she brings her back, and she's got to kind of comfort her in a way that she was never able to be comforted because she was raped and stuff and all this.
Right.
I think
she's able to stop it, basically, right? Is kind of what you're saying.
Exactly. You have like a little bit of she can find solace in saving her. I think that you have a better story that way. It's darker. It's much darker. But I think that would have been the direction. If I was writing the movie, that's probably the way I would have written it. And it would have seemed much more in line with just everything that was going on. And I think it would be more it just seems more with the trajectory of what they were trying to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think to kind of touch on that, for me, the thing that was the most hokey was the heroic, Portuguese
slave
guy.
trader dude. He
didn't work.
What the fuck are you doing, dude?
He didn't work for me at all. He felt like he belonged in a different movie to me.
Yeah,
he felt completely out of it was just like, well, they're not all bad, right? All the slave traders. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that obviously, as depicted, the one guy is just like, fuck yeah, I love slavery. This is good shit, man. And the other guy's like, it's a little weird, especially because my mom's from here, so it's kind of fucked up, right?
And she was a slave, yeah.
So I kind of got what
those
they were trying to
things.
do, but I just didn't. I thought he felt very hokey as a character. I never bought him as.
Those two things are the reason that pulled it from me a very yes movie to just a yes movie.
Yeah,
but it's still very close to a very yes movie.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think what separates me is I couldn't really get over the heroic slave trader guy, whereas I thought that by the end they worked the mother-daughter stuff enough that it sold the emotionality of it, that I was able to get over the convenience and the kind of like, oh, come on, nature of where the plot went in terms of those two characters kind of intersecting. Like, I think it didn't need it. I think I still agree with that, but I think that they picked a direction and they at least stuck the landing with it. Whereas I feel like with the other guy, I didn't really like him from the get-go. I mean, I didn't hate him. I didn't think he was, I just didn't need him. It wasn't so much that he was like awful and he detracted from it. He just added nothing of value. He took screen time from other characters and he padded the runtime in this film. Is ultimately how I felt about him. So yeah, I think there's a way to do this that's darker. Absolutely, I agree with you there. I think there's a way to do this film that doesn't have the darkness, that just mostly excises his character entirely, and I think it's just as well for it. Like,
that's true.
Circumstantially, different things have to happen in the sense that, like, obviously he buys her and, saves her, quote unquote, towards the end. But, like, you have to work around that and do things in a slightly different way. But I think those were things that could have been easily worked around. I just didn't think he added enough as a character to contribute anything of
I think this is the
narratively.
case where I think a simpler product is a better product.
Yeah, it did overcomplicate itself a couple ways. And it wasn't that way until about the halfway point, right? It was
That's right.
Pretty simple in a good way from the get-go of here are these people and they're working together and like especially with the recruits, like they're all coming from very different backgrounds with the Naui who is about to be married off to this 40-year-old man,
who's an asshole. Yeah.
And she's like, actually, fuck this. And fair enough. and then there's the other girl who's literally from like a different like village, right? Or tribe or something like that. Right. And so she's just like, well, at least I'll be able to like be a fucking warrior here or some shit. I forget what the third girl's deal was, but similar sort of thing of like, there's, like they have their individual motivations of what drives them. They form a camaraderie as they work their way through, the training. And then obviously you have the established veterans in the army of the general of her, of Agojie and Amenza, and like the relationships that they've built obviously over the years with each other off screen feels real. Like they feel like, these are women that know each other intimately, they respect each other, and like they feel like a unified force and a force to be reckoned with. Convincingly, all that really worked really well, and I think that it could have been as simple as we're going to defend our fucking kingdom, and in the process we're gonna decry slavery and say we should get rid of it. And we should burn this shit to the ground, and we should stop this as an institution. We should stop selling our own people or our captured people, as it kind of seemed like it was like, well, they're from the other empires, so we can sell them off, and that's fine. And it's like, well, no,
that's still not very nice.
Still not good. It doesn't really matter who's being sold into slavery. I think we can, and I think that's a viewpoint of the characters. Like, well, it's still bad either way. Like, even if it's not just our people that we're selling, like it's still bad. Objectively, it's just a bad thing. And I think some of that is probably somewhat of a modern viewpoint, just being kind of injected into this kind of historical setting. But again, it's fucking fiction, and that's fine. So if you want to have a tale of morality amidst this historical backdrop, I say go for it. And I think that was fine. It's just it's obviously, as we talked about, the idea of trying to connect all the different threads in a way that doesn't necessarily demand that these threads be connected. Like, you don't have to wrap everything up in a nice tidy bow. Characters don't have to be related to each other, and to pull on the old thread of things that we always talk about on every fucking episode, Star Wars. Rey didn't have to be related to anyone. In fact, for one movie, it was totally fine that she wasn't, until they decided, that wasn't satisfying enough. She has to be related to someone. Old Grandpappy Sheev is fucking. Sheev is fucking. And so she's a Sheev. She's a Palpatine now. And it's like, That's
unnecessary.
Was this satisfying for anyone? Did anyone find this particularly pleasing? Was this something that people were yearning for? I don't think so. And I don't think what we got here is quite as bad as Grandpappy Sheev fucking. Don't get me wrong. But it's kind of the same thread of like, you did something that you didn't need to do. You did something, and I think you've perhaps taken it down a notch by doing it. In the sense that, you know, some things are okay to just stand on their own. That would have been fine. But for me, I think that kind of hits on like the biggest like real plot points that I wanted to hit on. I mean, I think the death scenes in this, I think, were pretty, you know, they were pretty touching, pretty hard hitting. You know, I think both her like her fellow recruit, I thought was a sad death, and obviously Agojie when she gets back and gets shot. That was brutal. That was really tough.
That one moment though, where she had to like inspire the woman with the broken arm.
Yeah.
She broke her arm.
Yeah.
And she had to like kind of like talk her back into it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That was really good. That was a super powerful moment.
Yeah. Anna said like, oh, well, as soon as she gets her arm set back in place, like she just went through that shit, she's going to be fine. And then, well, didn't work out that way, obviously. But yeah, no, it was a brutal film. I think it didn't shy away from its brutality of, you know, obviously there was a lot of violence inflicted against, you know, between, you know, in literal combat, but obviously violence against women in a sexual way, without obviously veering into it feeling like gross. You know what I mean? Like it felt like, all right, this is a film that's going to deal with rape, and how do we do it in a way that
it doesn't turn it into like Wind River or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wind River, yeah, I mean, Wind River was obviously pretty graphic, I think, in terms of its depiction.
That was really heavy.
You know, and I think that kind of sold the brutality of it in a very direct way. But in a way that felt like it was written and directed by a guy, because it was, and this was not. I think it was, you know, intended to be a little bit more, I guess, tasteful about it, you know, in the sense that, like, there's no way that you can depict the subject of rape and be nice about it. It's just not how it works.
It's not a nice action.
It's you know, it's almost inherently a worse thing, a more graphic thing than someone getting their head cut clean off. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, totally.
It's because it's such a personal, intimate level of violence that, like, it's a really tough topic to handle gracefully. And I think they did a good job of handling it here. I think in a way that,
you know, what happened
felt tasteful without being again crass or gross about it or any way. So yeah. Any other thoughts for you, spoiler wise, for The Woman King?
No. Very solid movie. Those two aspects which we've talked about were
they held it back. Sure.
Yes, more so than any sort of controversy that you've read about, you potentially have read about in this movie.
Invented controversy, I would say.
Yeah, like, it's like, if you want to talk about this movie, talk about those two things. Like, it's like the Melissa McCarthy Little Mermaid thing.
There are legitimate gripes to be had. It's not a perfect film. No one, I mean, maybe someone will claim it is, but I think that most people will not claim this as a perfect film, even if they fucking loved it, even if they fucking enjoyed it. Like me, I thought it was fantastic.
I did.
I really, really enjoyed it. And you know what? It's still not a perfect film. Most films are not. It is what it is. It's totally fine. Well, this film's not totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's totally fine to not be a perfect film, is my point.
Yeah. Anyways, so if you're going to stand on a hill and beat your drum about whatever, I think those are your two things that you beat your drum about. The shark tooth and the fucking guy from Brazil.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Mr. Brazil.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Mr. Brazil. He looks like a Mr. Brazil. He comes out of the fucking lake all naked and shit and holding his groin, covering up his dick.
Yeah, that was another thing.
Mr. Brazil.
Like, I didn't need the somewhat sexual tension there. I didn't need any of that. It felt weird. And like uncomfortable, but not in like not in a good way. Just in like a
okay, we're going here. You know, this is all right.
And I think that there were times where it felt like, oh god, it's really just gonna go, like, you know, like there were times where it's just like, all right, they're like they're gonna lean into it and they're gonna go in for a kiss, and then she like takes the knife or the dagger or whatever. And
yeah,
like, all right, that's fine.
He's like, I've got nothing to give you except this dick.
Yeah,
but he didn't say that or anything.
but it was
like,
implied.
I got nothing.
It was the implication.
Right.
and she's like,
and I thought they were gonna kiss, but she grabs the sword. It's like
that was good. That was a good like inversion of like tropiness. But you still didn't need any of it, is kind of how I feel about it. So I think it was handled fairly well. Like, it could have been much worse on that particular front. I just think instead of being actively bad, it was unnecessary. But could have been worse. Could have been worse. But yeah, The Woman King. I think overall, I think we recommend it. Recommend seeing it in theaters. And that's what we have to say about it. I have something to say on the front of the Listener's Corner.
We have some listeners in the corner.
We have a singular listener in the corner who wrote in a few weeks ago, actually. It's Bruce Brown. Wouldn't you guess it? And I think he watched something. Methinks he watched something on an airplane after he flew home from my wedding. It's a documentary called Facing Ryan. It is an excellent documentary about the Express, Nolan Ryan, who's a pitcher, a legendary pitcher. You follow baseball somewhat these days, so you might
Absolutely.
you might have heard of him. He says he loved him as a kid and idolized him in later years, greatest of all time. So it's apparently a recommended documentary, and that's interesting because Nolan Ryan was a fucking machine of a pitcher. Just baseball is a different sport now. Pitchers, don't go like 9 innings on the regular and just fucking throw their arms off. Nolan Ryan was that guy that just like threw his arm off, but it was fine. Like I feel like if they did that with a pitcher, they would have like 19 surgeries and it'd just be a whole fucking mess. Dude was a machine. So that's interesting. I would be keen to check out that documentary sometime. Yeah. And I did see, the reason I say that I think he watched it on the plane is because I'm pretty sure I scrolled past it when I was looking at my options to watch and settled on Venom, Let There Be Carnage.
No, you made the inferior choice.
I did. I made a mistake is what I'm saying. But that's okay. That's okay. All right. So since we recorded that special episode, what have you been up to? Anything good? Anything exciting? I know you've been going in on the spooky season, particularly, so maybe you have some things on that front to share. Whatever.
I did. I watched. So we watched Hocus Pocus. I don't know.
I think you talked about you watched the first Hocus Pocus last we recorded. Have you since watched?
Okay.
Hocus Pocus.
I have not seen the second Hocus Pocus.
You haven't seen the second one. Okay.
Not yet, but we're working our way up to it. We're going to watch it.
Okay.
I have watched a movie that came out this Friday.
This Friday.
Previous Friday.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I
thought you got an advanced screening of something. I was like, what?
October 7th, I think, is when it came out. Something like that. October 8th. I don't know.
Something like that. Sure.
One Hellraiser movie. I've seen 2 different Hellraisers. I've seen Hellraiser Revelations, which was shit, and I've seen the original Hellraiser.
You're saying prior to watching this that this is what this is. Okay.
Yes. Like my history of Hellraiser. Hellraiser is a prolific series. There's a lot of films. There's a lot of comic books,
of which I understand most of the films are shit anyway. So
I in my experience, it's a very low bar to clear. It's I think it's a cool IP.
Yeah.
But I mean the original movie was pretty intriguing. But it was, it's cool. It's a cool movie. It's a cool old school movie. It's like watching, Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. You know what I mean? It's just, is it perfectly executed? I don't think so, but it's got a cool concept. Anyways, I watched the new Hellraiser. I will keep my opinions pretty light because I don't know if we're going to be talking about it or not in the future.
There's a chance we will talk about it more extensively. Maybe we could do it on a bonus episode or something. I don't know.
Ooh.
I don't know. Maybe we could.
What I will say is, that I enjoyed this movie, and I think that the best comparison that I have to this movie is probably the remaking of The Evil Dead in like 2013 or whatever it is.
Well, it's got some thematic similarities, and I think that obviously, you're having it's a modern spin on a classic horror tale as well. So I see I see the similarities for sure.
Yeah. So I think anybody who's ready for Halloween season, I think it's a good movie to watch. I think that it's not one of those horror movies that is like, it's not Suburbia, but
Suspiria.
Suspiria. It's not Suspiria where like it's like totally uncomfortable and gruesome, but it is a little. It's got moments. It's a little out there. But I do think it's artistically made. I think it's like I said, I think you should watch it if you like want to get into some Halloween spookiness. I also watched in Halloween spookiness. I rewatched with my little sister and her boyfriend. I showed them a little movie called Event Horizon.
Ah, okay. Which has some Hellraiser vibes to it.
It's got some Hellraiser vibes to it. In outer space, right? So I think it's a cool concept. That it kind of maybe like the original Hellraiser.
Yeah,
it's a very cool concept. That just
mediocre to okay execution overall.
That's right, exactly. Like there's like you could have made such a badass movie, but instead you made this like okay thing, and I can appreciate what you were striving for. So it's aged pretty hard, but it's still pretty cool. Like if you're the kind of person that can watch something and just think about what it could have been and just like appreciate what it was going for and just accept the surface level attempt, I think you can enjoy this movie. I think it's really cool. Anyway, so I watched that. We've been watching The Voice, which is pretty entertaining. It's a pretty fun show.
Okay.
Dancing with the Stars, watching that. We're getting back into to reality TV kind of season, so we're going to be watching American Idol. I'm sure American Idol is going to be coming out soon. And I am trying very hard to stay on Halloween centric stuff because I haven't watched a whole lot of it, and
playing catch up.
Yeah, we're like as of recording this episode, we're 11 days into the month. I've watched some good horror stuff, but I'm going to be ramping up here. And hopefully we can record some of these episodes and get into the full swing of Halloween. It feels like, out of other things I've been up to before I ramble on. I've started Pillars of Eternity on PC. Well, it's on PC. It's on Mac.
I think that's a video game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little old, but it's pretty cool, and I can play it on my Mac, which is cool. And I also restarted. What's it called? I can't remember it. It's like a strategic game. It's like FTL. It's by the same people that did FTL, I think. Okay. But they made this other one where like you operate 3 different robots and they fight these aliens on these little gridded maps. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool little strategy game. It plays in a window. It takes like minimal battery out of the laptop, so I can like play it at work. Hopefully nobody at work hears this podcast and listens to me say about how I play video games at work. And other than that, I'm over a week out of puffing, so I have had no more nicotine for the past week.
You're still alive, so that's good.
Yeah, it makes like the 3rd time I've quit this shit. And every time I quit it, it really sucks, and it makes me feel like even more of an idiot for starting it back after I get like good and quit. But I no longer have headaches, so that's good. And I still really want to ingest nicotine. Like I still want it.
Yeah.
But I'm no longer having the physical symptoms of withdrawal, so that's good.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think that's all I've really been up to. So anyways, I was talking about Halloween. And it feels like if we're gonna get back into the regular swing, like our the tried and true version of this stuff. We got into movies and stuff together. I feel like because of our love of the genre of horror films and whatnot. I feel like that's kind of where it started. And if we're gonna like really dive back into like a regular routine of recording and stuff, I think it's the perfect season to start doing that. With Halloween and whatnot. So yeah, it's fun. It's cool. It's cool to be in Halloween. It's cool to be potentially returning to a regular schedule again after about a year and a half of irregular recording. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Cool. Yeah.
What you been up to, man?
We shall strive for normalcy moving forward and do our best. So I have also watched Hellraiser. I'll just say that at the top. I'll reserve my final thoughts, obviously, for a further discussion at some point later on. But it's on Hulu. It's widely available on Hulu in the States, so I would encourage everyone to check it out in preparation for our further discussion of it. I think it's got. I'm looking forward to talking about it with you. I think it's got some interesting aspects to it, and I think that it'll be a fun conversation.
Totally.
So I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that without getting too into specifics there. And I will do the same for the next couple things that I'm going to talk about because I think that they're things that we'll probably end up covering in some fashion. I would guess. We'll see. House of the Dragon. I am 6 episodes into it, so I'm 2 behind.
Oh shit!
From its live airings. Anna she's gone down the rabbit hole, and so she's kind of ushered me, forward and really watching a lot of it. Not that it's taken a lot of prodding and convincing. What I will say is, it is pretty good. It's so much better than the later seasons of Game of Thrones. It's surprisingly interesting. It moves very quickly, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. So I would recommend you jump on it if you want to talk about it for a full episode. You still got a couple weeks before it wraps up, and obviously we can have a grace period too of giving some more time if need be. But
so I can grind it out, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and
wait a little bit.
You're at the point now. Like I don't know how fast you'd watch it, but you've got 2 weeks before it like completely wraps up. But I think it's a good one. That it's been nice that we've been able to just kind of grind it out, so to speak, pretty quickly since we waited to start it. But I've been very happy with it. As someone obviously that was very burned by Game of Thrones, much like yourself, it makes me yearn for what could have been, because it feels like, oh yeah, that's right, this world is really interesting, and the characters in it are really interesting, and there's a way to do this really convincingly and intelligently, and then we just didn't get that. But it's got different people in charge. It's obviously a different set of characters, different time period, but it has the same feel in a good way, in a like a early season Game of Thrones sort of way of just feeling like, oh, this is compelling. That's right. This show was good once upon a time. I remember that. I loved that time before it got ruined. It would be more impactful without, obviously, Game of Thrones shitting the bed in the way that it did, I will say. But the fact that I'm in it all says that the show is pretty good overall. Is kind of how I think about it. So I have also gone on a recent binge of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. I think I watched the last 4 episodes in a single day, because basically we got super behind with like the wedding stuff and the honeymoon stuff, and then we finally caught up on it. Obviously, the last episode that is aired as of this, episode 8, features a certain blind lawyer in it, and that was great fun. Really enjoyed that. Looking forward to talking about that episode more extensively, along with the rest of the show. I think it's a really well done show overall. So I'm excited to talk about that as well. I think that's something people should watch over at Disney Plus in preparation for our coverage of that. Because I think I've been happy with She-Hulk as well. Is what I'll say.
I didn't spoil you with my text message. So
you spoiled me, but I already knew technically. I had seen the internet broke for a bit, I think, as a result of that episode. So So I had already seen bits and pieces, and there was enough that was new to me watching the episode that the detail that you technically spoiled me on was just
contain it. I'm sorry.
Let's just say it all ended with a satisfying conclusion, and that's fine. Beyond that, what have I done? I started a game called Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, which is the Fire Emblem / Dynasty Warriors mashup kind of game, but it's a sort of companion game to the last Fire Emblem game that came out, Three Houses, where it's like an alternate storyline using the same characters and the different gameplay formula, while still having some Fire Emblem-y aspects of, talking to the characters and having a more involved story. And it's actually really fucking well done so far. I'm really enjoying it. I like the traditional turn-based, strategy RPG style of the regular Fire Emblem games. This is, like a hack and slash with a million fucking characters on the screen at a given time.
Like Dynasty Warriors?
Yeah, exactly like Dynasty Warriors. It's literally Dynasty Warriors with Fire Emblem characters, but it's still pretty fun.
That's kind of weird.
It's fun. It's still fun. And then I literally today finished reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Anna has finished the entirety of the Harry Potter series. She lapped me by 3+ books, but I'm slowly catching up. I'll finish the series in about 7 years, and then I'll go back to Brandon Sanderson at that point. No, hopefully it'll only take me a few more months to get through it. But I will say Goblet of Fire is pretty good. We were doing a thing of doing the book and then the movie, so we haven't had a chance to do the movie at some point because I was holding everyone up. But it's a good book. It's kind of the transition point in Harry Potter where it goes from like a kid thing to like a more adult thing because it's Voldemort's return. And,
shit.
It gets like dark and shit at the end. But it's really well done. I think that kind of transition, and it's also like the first 3 are like small books, and then this one's like 3 times the size of the other ones. It just like they just rapidly increase in terms of the page count, and then and they kind of get as they kind of grow up with the audience, I guess, so to speak. And I think it's really well done here because Harry's like 14 or whatever. Does the Triwizard tournament in this one, the 3 tasks and whatnot, and shit just pops off in a big way by the end, where it just feels like the stakes are getting bigger and bigger, and like the world is changing, and he's getting more mature, and he's got like feelings for girls and stuff like that. Yucky. He no longer believes that they have cooties, is what I understand. But it's good. I thought it's a pretty well written book. Shame who it was written by, but it is what it is at this point, I guess. I'll enjoy it in spite of that fact. But that's it. I think that's it. I'm going up to Vermont in a couple days to enjoy some foliage, do some leaf peeping, and take in some colder weather. So I'm looking forward to that. So we won't record again until I get back, but I think that's it. So thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the word. If you want to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat, you can get early access to all of our regular episodes, as well as timed exclusive access to bonus episodes. And yes, I think we said as much on the special. We're going to be doing a spooky episode, a bonus episode covering some spooky films, some spooky content. And we haven't entirely divulged, obviously, what's going to be on that. But I think we can say right now that Hellraiser 2022 will be on it. So you know exactly one film that we'll be covering, and I think we'll let you know what will make the roster of films that we're covering as well as we finalize them. We've got a good idea, but we've got to finalize the full roster before we leak out that information. But start with Hellraiser. Start with Hellraiser. And you'll be partway there, and we'll expect that to drop probably towards the end of the month in time for Halloween. It's kind of our plan because we still got some movies to watch ourselves. So we got to do that. Our website's watchreviewrepeat.com. We are on social media at WRRPod on Twitter, at watchreviewrepeat on Instagram. We are on Facebook at watchreviewrepeat. Just find our page and like it. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions to be a part of a future edition of the Listener's Corner, send your thoughts our way. watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. If you have thoughts on Hellraiser, because you've seen it on Hulu as well, or you have some thoughts on some spooky things we should watch or anything else you've watched, be happy to talk about that. Our intro and outro track is Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. So our next episode, I wrote on the script that we would probably be doing She-Hulk, but that may not be true. I think we're going to, because we want to have our resident Marvel expert join us, Mr. Enrique Jaime. He's a busy man, so we're going to have to work around his schedule a little bit. So it's possible we do something before we get to She-Hulk. We also have Werewolf at Night, which has dropped on Disney+. I haven't talked about that at all. And that's another thing I think we'll want to cover with him. So we'll definitely be covering those in some capacity shortly, and maybe there's something we can slide in between. Who's to say? Obviously, between the special and this, we've had 5+ hours of goodies to have for our listeners. So we'll see how it shakes out, but certainly we'll have lots of stuff to talk about in October. No shortage of things to talk about this month. So look forward to whatever we do end up having on tap for our next episode. And with that, I think Andrew should take us out.
Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Laters on the Menche.